Captain America has been around since the 1940s. Now, since that time, 6 men have wore the mask and carried the shield. But Captain America would be born through one man and one man only, and his name is Steve Rogers. Now, Rogers, he would be born in New York City, right around the time of the Great Depression. He was a sickly and skinny-looking kid, but, what he lacked in appearance, he made up for an image, be it that he had blonde hair and blue eyes. But he came from humble surroundings, so grabbing attention with these attributes wasn't of no real advantage or consequence to him. Now, growing up, he realized that the key to survival was through hard work and perseverance. So basically, he sat out on his own he went out on his own to grab gainful employment. Eventually, he would find it as an illustrator. Now, the one thing that kept Rogers in an insatiable state of mind was the ever-growing threat of the Nazi war machine and the terror that they were spreading across Europe and soon to be spreading across the globe. Rogers pretty much knew that it wouldn't be long before the Nazis would make their way across the Atlantic and land on U.S. soil. And he wanted to make sure, like other young men like himself, that he was right there to meet them at the front door and send them packing. So then he would go on and he would enlist at the nearest recruiting station in the city. Now, in a parallel universe, Rogers would be considered to be a 1A, a one-way ticket to any war, any place on the planet. Because pretty much in the eyes of national defense, he's a human weapon. But unfortunately, in our universe, he was considered to be a 4F, which, due to his poor health record and his frail-looking condition. The recruiters didn't want to take too much of a chance with him, be it that he had bad health, and basically he was ineligible for service. This did not sit well with him. He begged, he pleaded, he said, give me another chance, do the test over. He didn't care what he had to go through. But the way they saw it, he was a casualty going out the door and a dead body coming back in. They didn't want the blood on their hands. And this went on for a number of days. Eventually, Rogers somewhat gave up, and when he left the recruiting station, he was pulled to the side by a higher-ranking government official by the name of General Chester Phillips. Now, Phillips had pretty much heard about this young man who was pretty much screaming to get in to defend his country, and he offered Rogers a chance to do just that by telling him about a secret experiment by the name of Operation Rebirth. But he forewarned Rogers that the experiment could be pretty risky. In fact, it could even be fatal. Rogers didn't care. He wanted in, and he eagerly volunteered. So then, a couple of days later, Phillips had took Rogers and a small entourage of, soldiers and other scientists to a small, out-of-the-way antique shop deep in the heart of the city. And once they got there, they seen a young lady who was the shop's owner. She automatically shut down business for the day, put the closed sign on the door, and she took them to the back and led them to this thick steel door. And she had one of the old wheel cranks to unlock the door, led them beneath the shop down a corridor. And at the other side, they got to the lab, which was the home of Operation Rebirth. Rogers would then be introduced to Rebirth's leading scientist, Professor Einstein. Now, Einstein had pretty much told Rogers that the goal of Operation Rebirth was to create a genetic army of super soldiers to help the U.S. in an up-and-coming war. At the same time, Einstein also thanked Rogers for officially becoming the first volunteer for this operation. Now, like with anything, Einstein had explained pretty much, the effects and pretty much, therefore other things that would happen beyond that, such as the fact that Rogers would be injected with massive doses of steroids and all other sorts of biological agents. But at the same time, he would be exposed to what's called catalytic radiation. All these elements together are supposed to boost the body's physical potential, making Rogers that perfect individual that he would be in a parallel universe. Pretty much now, the balance would be even. He would then go on to tell Rogers about Rebirth's history, starting with the fact that the first test subjects were animals, but he wouldn't give off no information as far as the results. That was classified by the government. But what he didn't tell Rogers, or should I say what he failed to tell Rogers, was about the first human test subjects, which was a group of African-American soldiers who were coerced. That's right, they were forced into volunteering for the procedure. And the horror followed on beyond that. We're talking about heart attacks, heart bursts, strokes, violent fits, and also seizures. There even came a point where death turned around and came in and played a couple of hands and won and took some of the souls with him. But one soul that just stayed nailed down, at least in a physical aspect, was that of a soldier by the name of Isaiah Bradley. Bradley, physically, he survived the first portion of that formula, but mentally, his mind went shot. And I don't mean shot to mush. It went shot in a way which no one's mind should go. He went completely and totally insane. And to the point that in a fit of rage, he would break into the armory, steal one of the super soldier suits, and then attempt to head to Nazi Germany to destroy a super soldier facility that they were building over there. Now, the government got a hold of this information, and they would capture Isaiah Bradley. Bradley would then be charged with breaking military protocol, theft of government property, and the major charge would be that he would be considered a Section 8, which means that pretty much by military standards, he's insane. For his safety and for the safety of national security, he'd be placed away in a prison unknown.